Thank you, Rhea. I really appreciate you spending some time with me to talk about your experience with vertical motion. You've been here for, I don't know, how long have you been with vertical motion?
I guess almost a year. I started reaching out with I think mid-April, and then I we finalized everything end of April.
Okay, so go ahead and introduce yourself, your professional background, where you're located, and then what prompted you to join Vertical Motion.
So I'm a sustainability leader, and I'm currently here in West Africa doing compliance and sustainability in one of the plantations that actually operate here as a concession. We have a farm and at the same time a processing plant. And I do mainly verification for the systems that we have put in place, especially on our voluntary sustainability schemes for quality assurance and operational excellence and overall sustainability program. So I came to West Africa because I wanted to do a shift in my career. Sustainability has become my advocacy, and when I got this opportunity to be part of that whole new concept, I actually jumped into it, packed my bags, and went to West Africa. But before that, I actually was with the manufacturing industry, started with fast consumer manufacturing goods as a production line engineer because my background, I'm a chemical engineer, and went to another industry with the food industry, which was somehow a similar setup from here. It had a plantation, also a complex manufacturing plant. And then now doing something bigger from my point of view, mainly aligned to my purpose. And that is mainly environmental protection and overall contributing to improving living conditions of people around me.
Wow, that is awesome. That's amazing. That is incredibly meaningful work. So, you're doing meaningful work. It sounds like you're very happy at what you do. What drew you in to be part of the vertical motion, I guess, ecosystem?
Got here in my current organization, I was mainly the person who needs to implement a framework, establish systems that would ensure compliance to specific standards, regulations, and mainly to put structure. And the way I did it was mainly in a manner wherein we need to do this. This is how it should be done.
Okay.
If you don't understand, I will help you, but it's mainly me doing it already. So
Okay.
and that's how execution was from my point of view, and it's mainly because my background is mainly putting structure, and from a manufacturing industry we're in, we have systems in place to support any framework, any innovation, any change. It was a bit different here when the structures are not there, even the skills and the understanding is not there, and so I didn't really notice what was wrong until I had that personal feedback from our leadership team. So it was an activity that we did for all. We had like an external person who facilitated that event. And when we gave feedback to one another, the feedback I got mainly from my colleagues and even my boss were like somehow to a point ridiculous at the back of my mind. It never crossed my mind that I would be that person to them, but something
Mm,
I cannot cancel out as well because it's not only just one person who said it, it's like there's a number of them. And it
right.
made me realize that whatever my intentions were, it was not flowing out when I expressed my actions, how I do my work, how I engage with them, how I
Mm,
communicated. And so I needed help. I reached out to a person who was mentoring me. He gave me advice that I go and improve my network, improve my communication because somehow it was the main opportunity. And I also had the previous mentor who I reached out to because he knew me better. Something that I have always been helpful to me was having mentors. But when I changed industry, I needed also to change a mentor because because he might not be able to relate to my current status or to wherever I am. And so when I reached out to him, he knew me very much. And so he helped me find a group that could somehow support. And
Mhm.
he checked out a number of potential coaching groups, and we ended up deciding, okay, let's join this thing that Tom has. And so that's how it started. And
That's interesting. I never heard the backstory on that. I love that. I love
I
that.
always thought Tom was like an AI. So I was surprised when he responded to me when I reached out to him. I think it was in LinkedIn. We had been connected already for a couple of months, and then my previous mentor and I decided, okay, come on, reach out already. No, nothing harmful about it. And we did
Yeah,
our back check, like
yeah.
out the address that was stated.
That's great. I would have done the same thing because there's so much noise out there. It's like, really? It sounds good. I don't know, but yeah, good for you.
Yeah, and so like we found out like okay, it's legit, so
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
proceed. And then when I reached out to Tom, I was trying to put on the payment, and then it bounced back because my bank didn't allow me because it was a very unusual transaction. And in my
Oh,
mind, I was like, why is this not is this like
it's not
saying
real.
something?
Yeah, like
But it was just
well,
my bank because they had some security checks.
yeah,
So
yeah. So, thank you for sharing that backstory. That was really, really interesting to hear, like, the feedback that you got, and I think it says something about you to understand, like, okay, it just wasn't one person giving me feedback on my communication style, on my leadership style. It was a couple of people. So then I think that really caused you to pause. What that makes me think about is one of the first things that we do with our members is we have them do assessments so that we can understand. I think not so much that we understand, it's more important that you understand who you are. Like, where are your strengths? What should you really be leaning into? And then what are some things that, maybe are challenges or things that you should pay attention to? As I think about that foundations report, how did that influence how you started to interact with your team or just kind of think about maybe your communication style, your leadership style? How much did that play into it?
So the foundation's assessments were actually very helpful to me. It was a validation on why I was engaging the way I did.
Mhm.
And, I had this foundations call with Tom, and like my personality is actually a commander.
Yeah, yeah, which is good.
And yeah, I mean, very
Yeah.
analytical, and I'm really low in terms of emotions on the other side, but highly rational. But I tend to adapt because I know it's like a thing that I need to put so much effort on. And so it
Mhm.
showed in the assessments. And I can still remember, like, from my end, when I say something, if you don't understand it, then you don't understand it. You just don't understand it. And then I was given
That's
the feedback from Tom, like, Rhea, you need to repeat it 6 times because there are six personality types. You need to be patient enough to let what you want to say be absorbed by the different people. It's not always that you are in front of someone who is like you. And
yeah, and that's yeah, and he delivers that information really well, and but it is true. I think we all can operate like that sometimes. It's like, I just said what I said. What is confusing about what I just said? Like, so I understand where you're coming from. So, you've been here for maybe just a little under a year. You came to the Mastermind in Denver. It was so nice to finally meet you in person. I guess I just didn't expect somebody who was so far away to actually be able to make it, but it was a pleasure meeting you. After all of this time, like, how would you describe your experience here? And that's inclusive of the members, that's inclusive of the actual program and the modules that you go through, the connections that you've made. Like, what has been your experience?
so that experience was really something I was looking forward to. Before vertical motion, networking or building relationships was not really something that I would prioritize, but I found
Mhm.
it relevant after going through the modules. And it's mainly because within the group, you would be able to understand more yourself and others. And even my assessments, I thought I am an extrovert, but when I got there, I was more of an introvert. So I was somehow in between. And what helped me most, being with the group, was to put myself out there without any judgment, having that safe space and
Yeah.
allowing me to be able to express my authentic self. And if it was something that there would be improvement, I mean, someone would just say it in front of you, and then you realize, oh yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah.
mainly advancing that learning somehow, because you are with the different people, the six personalities. And I actually got into that mastermind, and we always said about the 48 laws of power, manipulation, right? And before vertical motion, that was actually somehow a reference for me. And nothing, no bad intentions from my previous mentor. We actually run through it chapter by chapter, because from his point of view, I came from Asia, right? And
Mm.
his objective was, because I'm a woman, you need to be cautious of being manipulated.
Wow. Interesting.
And that was
Interesting.
the reason why we
He's
got through it in very detail.
Yeah, so he's looking at it from in a sort of a gender experience as well as a cultural experience. And
Yeah.
so, just to like, this is a possibility, pay attention to that. Interesting. I think
And
wise
so
counsel.
I would detect like someone who wants to manipulate,
Yeah.
or whose intentions or motives were actually not that positive. And mainly because I run it through him. We actually have like, actual examples, and he would mention to me, okay, so this is what's happening. And even when we got through it in the first time, because we took turns to discuss each chapter,
Mhm.
and the first chapter was actually never outshine your master. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am actually failing already in the first law.
You're like, wow,
And,
okay.
but
Uh, that's yeah, interesting. Very
yeah, so
interesting.
but it was mainly understanding the human condition, right?
Yeah.
But the,
Yeah.
the only thing that was not so good about it is that you would always be guarded, because and your response would always be a counter to that
Yeah.
manipulation.
Wow.
So here in the program, since the priority is actually to be authentic, to be empathetic, to be audacious, it somehow
Mhm.
is more liberating.
Yeah.
I mean, the motive, but then you just need to be yourself, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing more confident and more, like I said, liberating than just being your authentic self. So you
Yeah.
carry yourself, you behave the way that you think is the better version of yourself,
Yeah.
and you just need to be sensitive of certain traps that you always get into, like when you respond to things, to some stimulus. And it takes practice, and over time, you show up as who you want to be, someone
Yeah.
who is already like fixed in your mind that this is me, this is my purpose. And that was a journey. And I have always been a believer of processes, right? Because that's mainly what I do. I put framework, I put processes, and
Which we
here there was a process. You need
which
to know
we
yourself more,
you're like,
be
"Oh,
confident about yourself, and then put yourself
yeah,
out there. And it was, for me, it worked. Maybe I'm not yet in that position or role that I have in my mind that would be something of a milestone. But what I can say is I have become a different person from who I was when I started.
yes. Yeah, I do have to comment on that. I remember when you first came into the program, you came in as who you are, just like, everybody does with certain experiences, sometimes, not such positive experiences within our roles within corporate America. And very quickly, now I know that Jackie was your coach. We have several coaches here at Vertical Motion. Jackie was yours. And pretty soon after, she's like, "Have you met Rhea?" I'm like, I go, I don't get to work with her a lot, but I do see her. She goes, she's amazing. And I think, I don't know, did she send you one of her little Wonder Woman statues? It was,
Yes.
she, she sends one to me, right? So
Oh,
everybody gets
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But no, she thought very, very highly of you really early on. But I do see there has been such a transformation. You're telling me that you were more, maybe you were extroverted, but you couldn't really show it. And so that doesn't come through anymore. You feel your energy is very different. It's more confident. And I do want to put a fine point on what you said about showing up authentically. Everybody thinks that, this executive presence is putting on the suit, a certain way of speaking. And obviously, you have to, your energy has to be a certain way. You have to look presentable or look good, I guess. But what I think is the most power behind executive presence is showing up as who you are, being really clear on who you are, and being really okay with it. So if you are leading in a way that is aligned with your values and you have top-notch values and that's how you show up, then that's who you are and that is your executive presence. And so you definitely, I've watched you shift into that, and it is inspiring.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, there will always be those manipulative people around, right? And I mean, there are two ways to move up, the
Yeah,
that side and the other side, which is just be who you are, your authentic self. And
yeah,
now I actually am able to step back and, because me, my reaction would always be to fight, right? I mean, I was
yeah.
taught like even when I was young, we are all equals.
Mhm.
And my immediate response would be, okay, so how do you want to do this? Do you want to just like, have a piece of me? And but it's
Wow.
so we can fight over this and then let's see who wins, right? And that's always like the like my reaction. But now, like when you see these things, when people try to manipulate and you just respond in a manner wherein you are aware that what is more important is actually the outcome, that
Yeah,
you get aligned with really your intention and your purpose, and that this is what I need to do because this is the outcome that I want to see. And
yeah,
all those things about fighting and trying to look like you are the one who is right, that doesn't really matter now
yeah.
because you are more of looking forward to the outcome that
That is
you.
a Yeah, that is a really powerful mindset shift that I think will serve anyone well. I love that. I love that. So I will have one last question for you. I just want to know, like, if there's anybody out there who is, either in a similar situation as yourself, or, is ready to kind of position themselves to get to that next level, whether it's a VP or a director or wherever you are in your career journey, what would you say to them about vertical motion?
My advice would be there are things that you don't know, and it's better to have a support system wherein you get guidance to where you are now in your career, and that you go through that journey with proper mindset because time is like a finite resource, and figuring it out on your own somehow might work, but time spent might also be too much for you not to enjoy reaping all those better version of yourself, right? We continue to evolve, we become
Yeah.
better like the next time we get into adversity or there's challenges that come in front of us, but you want to get out of those challenges as a better person, as a
Yeah.
better
And,
version of
and
you.
yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. You can do it by yourself. You might read a couple books and you might get the answer. How long is that going to take, right? And why not
Mhm.
do it in community instead of in a silo? Because I think there's so much learning. I've seen a lot of learning just between the community members, and I know that you have too. So yeah, thank you for that. What a great story. I love your story, Rhea. Always interested to hear and how it continues to go. And it sounds like it's been a pretty positive experience for you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate like when during that mastermind, everybody wants to know each other, one another.
Yeah.
And I remember Dan, he was like, Ray, I need to have a one-on-one with you. I need to know your story.
Oh,
But he
great.
actually left very earlier, right? And so we came up with a call
Hmm.
wherein we would be able to talk. And he mentioned to me something that really got stuck in me. And he said, like, don't give me any excuses, right? Because and you know the personality of that. He's like his
I do, yeah.
personality. I don't really meet them that often.
Well, don't you love somebody who's just gonna hold you accountable? You kinda know that there's no harm involved, but I think it's what's cool about that is they see the potential in you, and they're not gonna let you try to slide under the radar and just, "Well, I know." He's like, "No, what's your story?" And I think he sees it, so I think that's cool. So did you meet with him? How did it go?
Yeah, and I was telling him at that time I was talking with him. I was a bit like, don't know if I want to continue with, or I need a reset,
Yeah.
whatever I think is my life's purpose and everything. And he told me, Ray, I could give all the reasons wherever I am in the world. I am here. I think he was in somewhere in the Midwest, and
Yeah,
he said like,
Wisconsin.
I could always complain about the weather here and not do anything, or I don't make any excuses and do something about it. So,
Yeah.
man, don't give me any excuse. And I was like, okay, Dan, thank you. Maybe that's what I needed to hear, right?
Thank you
And
for your honest. Ah, that is great. I love that. I love that.